Welcome back YouTube. We're in Tesco's. We're hoping that we're not going to get kicked out because, you know, that's usually what happens when we get to Tesco. I am going to go through with what I'm eating to grow it's basically going to be a supermarket sweep of what I'm eating at the moment to be able to make progress in my physique in order to grow, develop, get my glutes getting massive since I've come out of my diet. Just maybe go through some different sources of foods or the same types of foods that I'm having, a little bit of a switcheroo in terms of my diet in order to optimize my off-season progress based on my personal goals at the moment. So we'll get into the first thing that's going in my basket. So first thing that's going in my basket is vegetables. Sources of veg never change really. Want to make sure that we get a good amount of fibre, but also things that I actually enjoy. Yes, I'm not saying that cucumber and tomatoes have got the most amount of fibre in there, but I do enjoy them and they are very low calorie. I do find that people try to use vegetables like marrow fat peas or just normal peas, and I'm not saying that in moderation they're not fine, but they are pretty high in calorie compared to just a normal vegetable. If you do scrimp and scrape on your vegetables, you're only putting your digestion at risk, and if you put your digestion at risk, you're obviously then not going to be able to capitalise on how you intake food and then the amount of food that you can actually consume over time as well. Do I find that when I've been in my heavy off seasons that getting in a lot of vegetables is hard? Yes, I do reduce my amount of vegetables when foods do get high because we know that carbohydrates have quite a high amount of fibre in it. Once I start finding that my gut feels quite heavy, I do pull back a little bit on my vegetable intake to make way for the extra carbohydrates. I always keep a check on my chronometer as to how much fibre I'm intaking from vegetables and all of my other carbs, and I keep it pretty standard when I'm in whatever season. So that does mean when I'm in competition prep as well, I will increase my vegetables a little bit to obviously offset the fact that carbohydrates have come down a little bit and fibre intake with that's obviously gone a little bit lower. So the first thing is the vegetables that goes in the basket. The second thing is, I'll tell you one thing, I'm actually going to talk about my little avocado here. Avocado is not a vegetable. If you do swap any of your vegetables for avocado, it's not a vegetable and it is not a fruit. I actually do think that it's classified as a fruit in some places, but it is a fat. The fats that within it, it is a healthy fat. It is a good fat. I'm not going to say that you should use a lot of it because it is very calorie dense, but if you want a good fat, something that's going to give a lot to your body, especially when it comes to female health, avocado is a good source of fat. So we've obviously popped that in the trolley because we are here in the fruit and vegetable section, but it is not something to swap for your vegetables because it is a fat within your diet. Other things that we have here is obviously our fruit. We all know that fructose, a little bit of fructose, helps with the utilisation of glucose within your diet, which is obviously going to come from the rest of your foods. So here we have fruits that we usually use, which is apples, kiwis, not for me because I'm actually allergic to kiwis, pineapple. I also use berries, but we always get the frozen ones. There are actually studies to say that frozen berries are actually, the antioxidants that are in them actually get trapped inside there compared to if you actually use a fresh one. So we will get some berries, but it will be in the frozen section, which is obviously further down the line. We have some lemons that both me and Cuba have in the morning as soon as we wake up. Lemon and a little bit of hot water helps the digestion get flowing for the day. We also have some bananas in here. We know that bananas, yes, are a fruit that are quite high in carbohydrates, so they're not, again, used in an excessive amount. Obviously, you don't want to use a huge amount of potassium in your day anyway, so having too much banana is obviously going to allow for that. And we've got some carbohydrates in there, but we'll probably move on to carbohydrates a little bit later down the line when we have some more in our basket. So fruits, vegetables, a little bit of fats are already in there already. And none of those sources of foods do I use any different in my diet or off season. However, foods are a little bit higher right now, so the amount of them, fruits, is a bit higher, whereas the vegetable amount at the minute is the same. The next thing in my basket is my proteins. We don't have a huge amount of protein in this supermarket suite, but we do have on the menu chicken, venison, a type of fish per day. So sometimes I'll have prawns, sometimes I'll have wild salmon. Again, both very low fat. The reason why there is not a lot of protein sources in this little basket or trolley is because we usually get meat from the butchers. So our venison and chicken both comes from the butchers. Cooper's mum actually portions it, puts it in freezer bags for us and puts it in the freezer so that I don't actually have to chop it and wait. That is what's it called? That is a new thing, apart from the venison. So I'm actually very appreciative of that because it saves a little bit of time. We also have some cartoned egg whites. It just obviously saves on money and time if you have the actual egg white cartons compared to if you're packing actual eggs. It just puts it to waste, doesn't it? And I've also picked up this little seafood selection because it's very low fat and it's something that I'll actually enjoy as well. But for me personally, I have between 1.2 to 1.6 grams of protein per body weight per day, and that's how I've always managed it in terms of good digestion, but also helping with muscle growth and recovery as well. Got its own little stand. Meg's. I'm going to make my own sourdough company. Carb sources. In my basket already, we have some sweet potato. Me and Kuba use the sweet potato to actually make our pancakes. It's something that's quite voluminous-ish, but it's really nice on your digestion. If you use a lot of oats and you do find that your digestion goes a little bit funny, you can use a little bit of sweet potato. It actually tastes very nice with a little bit of stevia in it. So sweet potato instead of oats, if you blend it up, is really good. As well as pumpkins are a really good option for that as well, as both have a nice amount of fibre but not too much. We also have normal potatoes. I use normal potatoes, Kuba doesn't. I will have a mix sometimes of baby potatoes, baking potatoes, cook them in different ways, boil them, air fry them, roast them, etc. Just for a little bit of variety. People don't get, that wouldn't take me any time either. People don't pay enough attention to actually making their food taste nice, and I do think that that's often why people then turn to fitness or get into bodybuilding, because they try and mask the fact that they can't actually cook. They'll just put, you know, a bit of cooked chicken in a bowl, a little bit of microwave rice, and job's your uncle. Whereas if you actually put a little bit of care into it, you probably find that your reverse diet went a little bit better. You'll probably find that your off season goes a little bit better. You probably find that your diet's a little bit nicer because you actually enjoy the things that you do eat. Again, it doesn't have to be fancy or take time. One option that I use is sourdough bread. We obviously know that Meg is a bread loaf. However, I'm not saying that it's just a whole food. There is a mixture of like 4 ingredients in there, so I guess you could say that it's not a full whole source of carbohydrate, but it's as close as you can get to it. I only use between 1 to 2 portions per day of it, so, and it digests well for me, so that's fine. The one thing that I'll say when it comes to breads, don't choose something like a normal Roberts loaf, because if you actually looked at the back of it within the actual ingredient profile, there's about 50 different ingredients. That is a processed food, and you want to try and stay away from it if you want to have good digestion, even keep skin health in a great space. One thing that people often do is they'll get bread, but they'll get seeded bread. That brings a lot of calories to your actual your plate. So try and stay away from something with the seeds, etc. One other thing that makes me laugh, when people use bread that's brown bread because it's healthier for you. It's actually more calorie dense and it's a lot slower digesting, which if you're someone who's out of shape and you're not looking to be a bodybuilder and you want something that's a little bit slower burning because you need to help your satiety, so your ability to be okay with your hunger and reduce down your hunger in the day, maybe a bit of brown bread's good, but it's not actually healthier. So if your doctor's telling you that, tell him to naff off. Hi guys, so we wanted to talk to you about the cookbook that we are launching from Team MK. So many people don't understand how to eat a well-balanced diet and not add lots of hidden calories into the foods that they obviously want to cook. They want to be able to eat their favourite foods, pizzas, flapjacks, spaghetti bolognese, etc. without all the additional calories that you'll get from eating a meal out or even going and having it from your favourite takeaway. So we thought that we'd create a cookbook for you to be able to enjoy good whole foods while still being able to eat your favourite takeaway or favourite foods. Please drop us a DM to be able to join and get access to our cookbook now. Right, making your food taste nice. You do want to use some sodium. You want to keep your electrolyte balance good. If you've not really salted your foods before, start with just 1 gram a day. That's between like 5 and 6 grams per day for most people. Obviously alongside your water intake, as a smaller female, you probably want to minimum get 3.5 to 4 litres, all the way up to kind of 6 litres. If you're going over and above that, especially if you are a small female, very hungry, and you'll probably find if you did reduce down your water a little, your electrolyte balance will be better and you'd probably be able to lose body weight a little bit more. So other things that we can use alongside obviously the sodium, when it comes to sodium as well, like actual salt that you use, for me, I have iodized salt on my food. Things like that is going to help naturally to help boost your thyroid function. Obviously, if you're someone that does struggle with thyroid function, you can always look down the natural realms first before you actually go down the route of things like thyroid support through actual supplementation like T4, T3, levothyroxine, etc. Other things that we're going to use to make our foods taste great are herbs and seasonings. So the little ones that we use quite often are, I'm trying to find where there's no cinnamon. Oh, there. We use cinnamon on our sweet products. People will shout at me if I buy this one because I'm not allowed to. Have to get the proper one from Amazon, which is organic, which is called Celine cinnamon, and it actually has lots of health benefits. I'm not going to reel them all off because they're all in somewhere else. Smoked paprika is a great one. We actually often use the ones that are called dash seasonings from Amazon because they are very low in sodium, because we want to keep a management of our sodium intake. That's where we use it. But if you're someone who's, not a competitor, you could use a little bit of these types of seasonings on your foods. Things like fajita seasoning, chicken seasoning, Cajun seasoning, etc. Put a little bit of that on. Put a little bit of water into your actual foods. Like one thing that I like to do is I put my chicken in a bowl, put some seasoning on it, put a little bit of water on it, mix it around, put it in the air fryer, and then it tastes absolutely fantastic rather than dull, boring, dry, awful chicken. Bob's your uncle and Fanny's your aunt, as we would say here in Yorkshire. Other carbohydrate sources that we've got in this basket. Obviously, a lot of our diet is very rice-based. We know as bodybuilders that it digests very well. It's easy to make, bosh. So I use that for 2 meals a day. Me and Cooper both cook our rice fresh every morning. It's really not hard because we have 2 rice cookers. But if you're on your own, you can have a rice cooker. Put it dry in the night before. You can make it so that it literally sets to go off in terms of cooking 8 hours later, meaning you've got fresh rice ready for as soon as you wake up. You can distribute it in the morning, etc. If you are using cooked rice or raw rice that you are cooking, I personally probably wouldn't keep that any longer than 2 to 3 days, and as long as it's been cooled and then put in the fridge, because it builds up, I don't even know what it is, It's bacteria, isn't it? It builds up bacteria on it that's actually really hard for your gut to digest, and we know that bacteria is not good anyway, so try to use as fresh as possible. I mean, you could just use a microwave rice instead, but I always think to myself, if it's in there in a pack and it can stay like that and it's fine to eat, what have they put in it to essentially help it stay good for that long? There's something not right about that to me, so that's why I always personally go for fresh rice. But even things like, I'll use like a rice noodle sometimes, exactly the same macros really as just normal rice. So there's literally no issue for me to have swapped to that if I ever did want to. But again, for me personally, my carbohydrate sources are cream of rice from Trained by JP Nutrition. Use code MEG10, including on clothing, oats, rice, potatoes, sweet potatoes, bread. That is all my carb sources that I use. But again, like I say, you could just utilise something like that or some packet rice if you need to. Moving on to condiments. For me personally, I don't use a lot of like sauces inside my foods. I don't use a lot of sauce on my foods because I'm not really a massive fan. I'll season my foods well enough that I don't feel I need to, but some people might season it anyway, but they actually like sauce, which is fine. You can use it. It's not a problem just because I don't do it. I've picked up something that is likely not very calorie friendly as a bodybuilder, because in this per 10 grams you'd get 15 calories. I mean, most people use likely more than 10 grams anyway, but you have like some of that throughout the day quite frequently. You are building up your calories quite a lot. Whereas you use like a low sugar, no added salt, sugar ketchup or something similar in terms of calorie content, and I'm sure it's like 6 grams or 6 calories per 10 grams, which is half the amount of this. If you're not a bodybuilder, something like this, a little bit of it throughout the day, like it's not going to cause issue, especially if you're trying to lose weight or just trying to have a well-rounded healthy physique. Something like that is not going to be a bother, but when you're really trying to manage every single calorie that you can when you are a bodybuilder, it is going to matter really. And then other things that you can add to your foods if you really are a sauce person, you have some condiments that you can add. You could add things to your meals like a tomato passata that's not really going to add any calorie to it. Can't really think off the top of my head anything else that you could do that's like tomato passata. But even something like this per 100 grams, it's actually just 30 calories. Like that is actually not a lot to say that, you know, you probably actually wouldn't use 100 grams of that, because what you could do is you could use 15 grams, add a bit of water, and it would come out just tasting the same. It's just that it's not quite as thick. So you could actually use that. That's actually not that bad. That's the Uncle Ben's sweet and sour, no added salt and sugar. And if you actually go back to 2020, me and Cuba used to use that very often. We used to rinse it. That's when I didn't cook properly and I didn't season my foods properly, and I had to rely on sauces. So if you can, and if you can educate yourself and actually put a bit of effort into it, progression with everything, you see. So even for me, progression with the foods. One of the last things that we're going to put in our little trolley is some water. So me and Cuba drink a lot of water a day between us. He drinks about 7.5, 8 litres, and I drink 6 litres a day. So essentially these two water bottles right here, or cartons, will only last about a day, which is fine. I know that we should probably create for things to be a little bit more cost effective with using the tap water, but especially in Rotherham, the tap water is not nice. If you've been there, you'll realise that. Where we live, it's actually quite nice. I don't mind drinking from the tap, but you see so much education around the rubbish that they put in the UK inside our actual like drinking water that it just sounds very dangerous, says the assisted bodybuilder. Well, ex-assisted bodybuilder. But I do think, you know, it's just a little bit better for you. Someone will probably pipe up and say about the fact that I'm drinking from a plastic bottle that's not good, but you know, risk versus reward. Maybe I need to get myself one of them filter jugs and do myself a favour, save some money and not have the risk of the plastic bottle. There's always going to be something, there's always going to have someone to say something about anything, but just crack on.
Save the dolphins.
Save the dolphins. So that is my foods that I'm eating at the moment in my off season to help me grow. Again, my sources of foods, so the types of foods, don't really change. When I'm in comp prep, or when I've been in comp prep, the sources of foods get lesser, especially when it comes to protein sources, things like fattier salmons, even like red meat at some point usually gets abolished, especially when you're trying to count every calorie that there is. Usually there is just chicken or turkey, whitefish, prawns, and that's about it. Or a little bit of whey protein. Obviously the whey protein didn't get put in my car, but that gets eaten once per day. I'm not a huge sweet fan. I can take or leave sweet things. Saying that, I did a good job of smashing the croissant when we were away, the cheesecakes. They were good, to be fair. All macro tracks, obviously.
Of course.
That is what I'm eating in a nutshell. There's little bits here and there that obviously didn't go in the basket in case they didn't have them in this shop, etc., or we get them online. But that is the food that we eat. It's so basic, but varied, colourful. Fruits, vegetables, different proteins, different carbohydrates. I think variety is a huge thing with sticking to things. Variety is a huge thing when it comes to less food focus, but not enough variety to the point where it just causes stress to make it, because I think that when you've got too many different things to do, etc., a little bit too much variety can cause a little bit of overthinking fatigue, if that's what you want to call it. So just having it right for that person, varied stuff, things that they enjoy, etc., is what's right. But hopefully it shows you that, you know, your diet doesn't need to be boring, doesn't need to be, it also doesn't have to be varied if you don't want it to be. Like, you can eat what you want. You can just have chicken and rice and nothing else if that's what you want to. But if you want good digestion and you want to make it so that you'll keep up with it long term, sustainable is the word, you'll find good variety is the key. I'm not saying that I don't have an off-plan meal per week. However, I think I've got over the fact from when I was younger that I don't need shit food. I'm not really that keen on eating shit food. I'd rather go out for a nice meal, something that's not going to make my body weight go up or have my digestion feeling heavy. I've spent so long being a bodybuilder that it's so nice to be a little bit hungry, to not feel like I'm getting overly stuffed by foods. In this off season, will I get to a point where I'm feeling a bit heavy, a little bit fluffier and a little bit like I'm ready to diet? Yes, but the time for that is not right now. And I think the longer that you do it for, the longer that you just relish in being a little bit hungrier and in taking a bit of care in your food. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed it. Please like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Let us know what you'd like to see below. #meal prep if you got to this point, and we'll see you again soon.